Forrest Tucker's daring breakout from San Quentin remains one of the most captivating and breathtaking crime stories in the archives of criminal history. We're going to delve into the details of his incredible story, from a troubled upbringing to a notorious crime spree that culminated in his incarceration at the infamous San Quentin maximum security state prison, and the subsequent escape, sparking a nationwide, extremely long, and troublesome manhunt while leaving a trail of chaos and confusion on his path. Before we embark on this journey of crime exploration, let's get acquainted with the mastermind behind this historical escape. Although the information about his early life is sparse, some important details have been successfully uncovered. Forrest Silva Tucker was born on June 23, 1920, in Miami, Florida. He was initially raised by both parents, but by 6 years old his father left the family, leaving only Forrest's mother and his grandmother with him. Since his early childhood, he displayed a knack for mischief and was known for often finding ways to bend the rules in his favor. Unsurprisingly, growing up during the Great Depression and an era of gangsters left an indelible mark for the rest of his life, as he saw it the only way out of severe poverty, and hardship was the criminal one. So inevitably, as he grew older, his life took a darker turn, beginning his criminal career at age 15, when he was first imprisoned for stealing a car, and then escaping a year later, which would become one of his habits in life, and the basis for his own description of himself as an escape artist, successfully escaping unbelievable 18 times in total in the future. He spent his early years becoming a famous and respected criminal bank robber, and even forming an infamous group over the Hill Gang, and as well as earning a reputation as an escape mastermind by managing to break out from Alcatraz itself when he was briefly moved to a hospital for an operation and later apprehended, and then transferred to the infamous San Quentin, California State Prison, and from which he would make his most famous mind-blowing escape, literally in the full view of the guards. Let's proceed further to learn more about the prison and how Tucker spectacularly made his way out of there, making him forever known as simply one of the best escape artists in history. In October of 1978, he was sent to the San Quentin Maximum Security Facility. As mentioned before, with him being already 60 years old, the prospect of staying there until the rest of his life understandably wasn't very appealing. So he would attempt to perform an escape from the place like none else, which would certainly be his greatest and most complicated breakout ever. His first step in creating his escape plan was meticulous observation. He spent weeks studying the routines of the guards, the layout of the prison, and the vulnerabilities in its security measures. With his keen eye for detail and his gift for persuasion, Tucker gradually began laying the groundwork for his daring breakout. In the realm of criminal legend, few institutions loom as large and foreboding as San Quentin. Situated on a desolate sliver of land along the northern edge of San Francisco Bay, its ominous presence is enough to send a chill down even the most hardened criminal's spine. The prison's notoriety extends far beyond its imposing stone walls and guard towers. The sheer magnitude of the challenge is enough to deter all but the most audacious and determined of criminals. The layout of San Quentin is designed with meticulous attention to detail, intended to confine and control the criminals. The perimeter of the prison is secured by towering 20-foot stone walls, topped with coils of razor wire, forming an imposing barrier that serves as the first line of defense against any escape attempts. Guard towers positioned strategically along the walls provide constant surveillance of the grounds, ensuring that every movement within the prison is closely monitored. For years, there have been only several escape attempts by some of the prisoners, with no one succeeding, which definitely provided a substantial dose of confidence to the security workers. Upon entering the prison grounds, you are immediately confronted with a labyrinthine network of buildings and corridors that make up the sprawling complex. Additionally, a team of highly trained guards patrols the grounds around the clock, ready to respond swiftly to any signs of unrest or potential breakout. And thus, even the mere thought of escaping from San Quentin is considered a fool's errand by most inmates, given the prison's reputation for impenetrable security and the severe consequences that would await anyone caught attempting to break free. Regardless of what others thought, Tucker considered his escape to be a challenge for himself, to prove yet again his mastermind abilities to everyone and show his true unstoppability. The first problem for him was getting outside of his cell and the building itself consistently, and without any unwanted suspicion. Since he was 60 years old, it was easy for him to fake being ingratiating with the guards, adopting friendly behavior. and playing the obedient elderly inmate, earning their trust, and at the same time identifying key weaknesses in the security system for him to exploit in the near future. He quickly learned from some of the inmates that there was a prison workshop at the facility outside of the main prison complex for those trusted prisoners willing to shorten their sentences by being compliant and obedient to the guards and performing manual labor, both in the form of furniture construction for public buildings, offices, and so forth. He was excited to hear this valuable information and immediately began working on earning the inside trust of the guards in order to be allowed there as soon as possible. Of course, he knew that earning trust would take some time since he was a well-known robber and prison escapee. But time was all he had, so he proceeded forward, and after seeing how smug and relaxed some of the guards were, he decided to exploit this weakness as well. By pretending to be a harmless, weak elderly person wanting to live in peace, he was increasingly considered not to be such a big threat as before. Genius move. After successfully managing to get allowed to work at one of the workshops, he began the second phase of observation and assessment of possibilities. Maybe because he suspected that he wasn't the only one dreaming about breaking out. He was also attentive to what some of the prisoners there were talking about in case any of them would show signs of being crazy and brave enough to attempt escaping. Weeks went by, and Tucker learned a lot about the place, all the tools, and other inmates who were there regularly. While observing, he always felt that someone was watching him as well. He worked with several other inmates, one of whom was John Waller, also known as the Rabbit, because of his fame as a prison runner. They occasionally got in contact with each other and quickly began noticing a familiar look in the eyes, especially because Waller had already known some information about Tucker's legendary status in the crime world. The look of those willing to break free. One day when Tucker took a break sitting on a bench near the bay, he was joined by Waller, so they together observed the calm waters with boats of relaxing people enjoying themselves. Unsurprisingly, their conversation quickly turned in the direction of possible ways of breaking free, while Tucker simply nodded towards the water, sending a signal of what he thought was the way. For Waller, this was a truly insane and audacious idea. Well, of all possible ways, choosing water was something that even Waller hadn't anticipated. With such a large open area that was constantly watched by the guards in itself was a cold, unpredictable force, which had already deterred many of the most brave inmates in the past. Yet he understood that he worked with an expert, so at the end they proceeded forward with the idea. For several weeks they brainstormed possible ideas. Swimming clearly wasn't an option. But interestingly, Waller had experience working with boats, so he suggested building one. Tucker learned more about Waller's knowledge of boat construction and was confident in him. But to move things along and help with other obstacles, they needed an extra hand to help build, hide, and at the end construct the boat. Fortunately, Waller knew another inmate who was also famous for being escape-minded as well as desperate enough to attempt escaping and was capable of keeping the thing secret. This inmate was Willie McGurk, who had previously managed to escape, which was the reason he was sent to San Quentin. Luckily, Waller was correct about McGurk, and he agreed to participate in the plan. Although trust was a rare currency in the prison, with unexpected dangers waiting at every corner, McGurk was the right choice in this case, and thus the criminal trio was formed. Now they had to reanalyze everything together, discuss their plan of action, and make sure that the plan is airtight while being willing to bet everything for the taste of freedom. Their main obstacles at this point were how to build a boat, manage to deliver it to the shore, and set sail, all while being closely watched by the security officers. The task seemed impossible. Fortunately, Tucker and others were willing to take the risk and challenge even the impossible. They began sharing their own additional observations and thoughts regarding the security and its weaknesses, as well as analyzing their equipment options. First, building a boat inside one of the most dangerous and strictest prisons in the US wasn't a small task. But incredibly, in any other case, they had access to a variety of tools and materials for them to utilize. Everything they could ever dream about. They created a list of tools and resources required and spent some time gathering and hiding them until they had what they needed to begin the construction. Fortunately, the workshop had a constant supply of fresh materials and tools, since they were making a lot of furniture, wood, plastic, nails, hammers, saws, and so on. The guards wouldn't notice if something disappeared. The problem was therefore not with the gathering, but with the building of the boat itself. How to construct a seaworthy boat that would contain them all, and without getting caught on the spot, which would be completely devastating. They would hope that luck would be on their side, and create a small space at the back of the workshop where they could work uninterruptedly and without prying eyes. They spent months switching back and forth, looking out for the guards nearby and working on the construction, and soon the boat began to take shape. But with this small success, a new problem arose. The bigger the boat gets, the harder it is to hide it. So they talked it over and came to the conclusion that if their plan would work at all, it would have to be fast. They had several weeks at most. They would all need to work in a hurry, with Waller finishing the construction, Tucker carrying the supplies and materials, and McGurk getting the necessary information. McGurk was given an important task: to find out information about the tides and to select a date when the water would be calm enough for the sail. He snuck into one of the small sections near the bay where some of the guards worked and stole a fresh local newspaper. Great. Inside, he found all the necessary information about the tide schedule as well as public activities, and suggested the best date for their escape: August 9th, 1979. Unfortunately, the best weather and tide conditions on that date also coincided with the local Marine County Yacht Club's crossing of the bay, with lots of people watching, so they wouldn't be alone on the water. The situation was serious, so everyone except for Tucker got nervous and even suggested changing the date, but Tucker was sure they couldn't wait any longer, and so he came up with the idea to use this opportunity and blend in with the yacht club members by changing their clothes to disguise themselves as one of them. Clever idea. So they did. They painted the boat and their clothes to match the yacht club's colors, and the only thing that's left is to finally finish the boat and be prepared to move out on August 9th. Now, several hours before their move, the boat is finished with one last question still standing. Will it float and keep them inside? The only way to find out is to do it. They chose the shortest and safest path to the bay, where the security guards would be absent for several minutes, giving them just enough time to carry the boat to the water and then blend in with other near-sailing yachts. The operation was truly nerve-wracking. One small mistake, miscalculation, or flaw in their plan would mean their end. They prepared everything necessary, changed the clothes, and took the boat. After verifying that the guards were absent for the security shift, they proceeded forward. No one in the wildest dreams could ever imagine that such a plan would work, but maybe that was the reason it did, defying everyone's expectations and going forward with even the craziest idea. That's the signature of Forrest Tucker. When they came out on the street, they couldn't believe what they saw. A delivery car was left alone with the keys inside. Maybe the driver was distracted or just forgot it. Regardless, this was literally a stroke of luck they were hoping for. They quickly rearranged and devised a genius operation. Waller was going to slowly drive the truck to the water while covering Tucker and McGurk on the other side while they carried the boat, so no guard would be able to see them. After they reached the shore, they slowly but surely placed the boat on the water. And now was the time to finally find out whether their hard work would pay off. One by one, they got on the boat, with each one pushing it deeper and deeper into the water. The three barely managed to fit. So far, so good. Now, with their hearts pounding and in cold sweat, they proceeded to go on. The last thing they needed was to sink right in front of the watching armed guards. They kept paddling in complete synchrony, with their faces emotionless, pretending to be real sailors with no fear or worry. They needed to swim just beyond the prison territory and blend in with the crowd of other kayakers, after which they would finally be free. But when they reached the last border of the prison, they were spotted by one of the guards there. At that moment, they realized it would be their final challenge. By that time, the tides began to increase, and the boat started to take in some water. They were paddling frantically, and the guard yelled, asking if they were okay, seeing them struggling like that. After which, in total silence, completely unexpectedly, due to his timid nature, McGurk came up with a legendary response. In seconds, he yelled back, while pointing at his wrist, "Yeah, everything's fine. My Timex is still running." After that, the guard peacefully went away, thinking they were regular kayakers, and didn't take any action. Relief. They barely swam past the final checkpoint and came onto the shore, tired, dripping wet, yet totally ecstatic and happy. Now they were free, at last. But moments later, as the adrenaline and good feelings began fading away, Tucker returned to his lone wolf personality and ran away, leaving his confused team members on their own. Because to truly be free, he needed to be on his own. He couldn't risk having any unsafe connections that could lead to him being discovered. Now he could rely on and trust only himself. Several minutes after their escape, the security at the prison found their workplace empty with missing clothes, tools, and materials in a delivery car near the water's edge. In addition to the tower guard's report about near-swimming kayakers, the pieces suddenly came together. The trio managed to escape. The governmental agencies were notified right away. The investigation and search teams were dispatched, and the news about their escape spread like wildfire. With the prior proudful and almost boasting demeanor of the prison representatives, and the previously impeccable reputation of San Quentin, everyone, both from the inside and outside of the facility, is baffled and shocked. But even after several hours of this mayhem, it was already too late. The team is already separated, and each member went his own way. As the history has revealed since, the criminal experience of the members clearly played a role in their ability to stay content while being undercover. Only 2 months later, McGurk was tracked down and captured because of his relaxed attitude and a habit of freely and openly going out with his new girlfriend in public places. When the search teams got closer to Waller, he also began feeling too safe and couldn't resist but show up and thus uncover himself. He was spotted 8 months later near the popular nightclubs of California. Clearly, the young wanted to live out their lives to the fullest without worrying too much. When it came to Tucker, he was the oldest and had much more experience both in crime and also hiding. It took the authorities 21 years to finally track him down, which only shows how impressive his knowledge and skill base were. He was 80 years old at that point. For all this time, he had a wife and pretended to have a normal, if secretive, life. But at last, he was captured after his final signature heist at one of the banks in Florida. He didn't live out his sentence of 13 years and died less than 4 years later, at the age of 83. And thus we conclude this truly unbelievable story about a man whose intellectual abilities, creativity, and a will for freedom outsmarted and overpowered even the most famed and dangerous of prisons, using the craziest and most risky idea possible. If you wish to see more videos like this one, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. See you in the next one.